Hello, Andy Graham of Hobo Traveler. My name is Andy Lee Graham. I'm from the little small village in the United States of Orland, Indiana. It's got about 400 farmers or factory workers. It's in Midwest United States, and I'm traveling in West Africa right now, and I've been traveling for 15 years perpetually. That means I never stopped. I actually do not have a home. I live anywhere I want to. I have a popular travel blog, National Geographic Top Adventure. There's all many National Geographics. One of the top 10 National Geographic Adventure travel blogs, Forbes.com, a bunch of it, listed everywhere. It don't really matter. But the point is, I've been traveling for a long time, and Michael Crichton, I'm not sure which book it was, but I think in State of Fear, or maybe Andromeda Strange, maybe it's Andromeda Strain, I learned a word from him called Amorphous. And I'm actually going to call this the most intellectual word I've ever heard on the planet. And it's very applicable, though, to travel. Amorphous. Okay? Then I wrote out, I'm also trying to not forget this. I cannot, for the life of me, remember how to spell it. So when I go try to look it up, it's not easy to find in a dictionary. It's not really in Wikipedia as a word. They talk about carbon amorphous. Okay, amorphous means being without definite character or nature. Unclassifiable. Being without definite character or nature, unclassifiable. Okay. What happens, and the reason why I was a philosophy major and I have this ongoing muse of mine where I try to, the definition of philosophy is a clear and sustained effort to think clearly. That's my definition. You can have a million of them. It's not your pop way of looking at some philosophical, like, life is this. It's really a very structured way of thinking that analyzes the world. And they used symbolic logic and different types of logic, which is basically geometry on steroids. Of course, geometry is really more logical than symbolic logic. It takes words and applies rules to it. But there's different types of critical reasoning, okay? And the reason why amorphous, let me pronounce it right, amorphous, I consider the most intellectual word I've ever heard, is because, I mean, Descartes' methodological doubt, which was, what is it, cognito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. He basically said, I don't believe in anything, therefore what can I really trust? He says, when I'm thinking, I know I exist. Same joke is, if a tree falls in the woods, nobody's there to hear it, does it make a noise? Well, what happens on critical reasoning is we enter our world. Now, this is incredibly, how would you say it? For me, it's almost painful. I read a guidebook, and I enter, oh, here comes my food. I read a guidebook, and I go to a country, and the guidebook gives me a oh, c'est bon. Thank you. Oh, he's delivering my egg sandwich. Hey, it's oeuf. Comment ça dit en français? Oeuf avec pain?
Oeuf, omelette.
Omelette.
Omelette avec pain.
Okay, merci. Okay, so what happens is, I'm sitting here. The guidebook sets up a window. It's a window you look at the world through. And this window is through the perception in a guidebook in English would be through the Anglophone world. So what happens is, the only way you can understand something in the world is really by comparing it to what you know. Like this omelet, he's calling this an omelet, but to me it's just an egg. He's calling it an omelet because it's flat, I guess, and I'm calling it an egg because there's no cheese or tomatoes or anything in it. It's just a plain egg. but I'm going to call it an egg sandwich because I'm going to put it in a sandwich. Okay, what does amorphous mean? Morph, I think, means to change. What happens is, I really, if you're going to really be intellectual, the reason why this word is the world's most intellectual word is that it's never-ending thread. You can pull on it, and you can keep trying to figure out corners to it, and the word leads you all over the place. What happens is amorphous things are completely random. They're kind of quantum leaps, which just jump, and they show these carbon fibers where they just randomly went over. I don't know if a snowflake is considered amorphous, but there's structures where they just start to break in different paths, and there is no predetermined structure to it. It's unclassifiable. Okay, what does this have to do with travel? Okay, when I come to a place, I read the guidebook, and it classifies the whole place before I come here. Wait a minute, that's not right. That is not the way we should be learning about our world. We should be seeing exactly what reality is, unedited, and then maybe draw conclusions about things that are obviously for sure true. Like I could say for sure this is an egg. For me to call it an omelet gets to be a push. Okay, I'm going to drink my mocha. I just did a commercial, not a commercial, a little thing celebrating this mocha cafe drink, which is a coffee drink in the morning. Okay, amorphous is something without structure. So what happens is, in critical reasoning, in an intellectual thing, when you enter Africa, not so much Africa, but if you enter China, none of the cultural things would be the same. When you enter Africa, all the rules of my culture change. Therefore, me trying to say they're poor is really not fair, because this is Africa, this is not America. Yes, they're poor in... These people are poor in cars and motorcycles and furniture and things and stuff inside their house, but they're absolutely millionaires when it comes to time. They have like unlimited amount of time to just sit around and talk and be friends. So, are they poor? But these guys suffer from the resource curse. They don't really have to work that hard, so they basically don't, which is quite a luxury in life, to just be able to sit back and eat and get fat and drink and have fun. I'm going to try to eat my egg here, guys. Amorphous is without form, meaning that what you see is not easily classified. Okay, so when I look at something, I'm trying to find structure. I'm not always capable of finding structure. Now, the reason why this becomes very intellectual, the intellectual is going to sit there and say, just like Rene Descartes, he's only going to say things like what he's absolutely positive of. And this is the problem. They make these freaking leaps. These travel writers make these leaps of bullshit that is absolutely ridiculous. Like, you can't just generalize and say it's poor. You can, but it's not intellectual, okay? So what I see is, in critical reasoning, when you're traveling, I would want everybody to be an amorphous traveler. I want them to see everything as having no classification, and only through critical process and analysis derive truisms, or chunking it down to small, specific identifiers that are 100% true, and then only build on those things. But don't take your window of frame of reference from America and put it here, or your European here, or even worse, you have your English version, you have your French version, you have your German version, you have your Dutch version, you have these different versions, and guess what? They're all different. I just was showing Resource Curse to my friend. I sent him the link in French and in English, and they really change it. Sometimes Wikipedia completely has a different definition in a different language of the same term. Of course, the way Wikipedia works is they basically copy from one language and copy, transfer, copy. It's just churnalism. They churn out bullshit sometimes. It's not to be trusted completely for facts. Okay, they try. But my point here is amorphous in critical reasoning. When you're traveling, you can say that you already understand a place, therefore the guidebook is correct. Or you could be intellectual and say, you don't even have a clue where you're at. My readers want to tell me about Africa. I have a very famous blog, right? I'm always like going, hey, I don't even know about Africa, and you're telling me about Africa. Let's be a little less arrogant, have some humility, be human, fallible, weak, and what we really are, and not know-it-alls. Okay. Amorphous, if you look at everything as amorphous, having no shape, and even if it does have shape, only extracting from what you're looking at, from reality, what you obviously know is true, like the sun is shining, things that nobody's going to debate about. And this is where people really jump. I have, in my writing style, I call it a propositional writing style. I propose something. Why do I propose it? I don't live here. I don't even speak French. Je parle français suffisamment pour voyage. I don't speak French well enough to slice and dice, cut, take the nuances of this culture. I need to get married to somebody here, live for 20 years, and then I'm still going to be clueless as to what this voodoo stuff is and all that stuff. And I'm sure as hell not going to pass judgment on it, because that is really unfair. Okay, but amorphous, having no structure, unclassifiable, and then the value of this is that when you look at the world in an intellectual sense, like René Descartes, or a lot of the philosophers, and try to discover what they really believed they knew. He said, cognito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. The only thing through his methodological doubt that he could really come up with. Then he tries to extrapolate the existence of God or something. He did a push. Okay. Travel should always be amorphous in nature. All of life is, really. You should just look at it, try to find and identify specific realities that are obviously agreeable by everybody. Of course, we're much more interested in the soap opera stuff, the things that are debatable. They're much more interesting and clever to talk about. But at the end, the premises, the assumptions, and the base should always be starting out with the obvious, like René Descartes again. I don't know if I say his name right. And we should build on realities, real beliefs, which are not debatable, and then maybe extrapolate a little away from it. I really thank Michael Crichton, he's now dead. He's written, the Andromeda Strange and The State of Fear. Anybody that really wants to understand anything about Africa and what's happening from the military-industrial complex and the NGOs and the news media, and how they're basically just coming up with wild-ass ideas about the world, should read A State of Fear by Michael Crichton. Thank you, Michael, for introducing me to this word, because he's the one that discovered it for me, and I consider him a very intelligent man. He died a couple years ago, I think. Let me get out my pepper so I can continue with my sandwich. I have to carry pepper here because they don't really have pepper. But my point on all of this is that when you're traveling, you have a blank slate. You have to make your life a blank slate. Okay? You have to make your mind a blank slate. You cannot read the guidebook and know about the world. Experience precedes understanding. It's not understanding and then experience. If you take your breaking down like a Venn diagram and you want to do it, you must first experience what it is, see what it is, sort of test the reality to make sure that you didn't accidentally misinterpret it, and then derive from it the obvious truth, and then you can start going. You don't just read about it, read about it, then go look at it. You can do that if you want something extremely studied like the Eiffel Tower or the pyramids or something like that. You can have really, really accurate type information. If you're coming to Africa, hey, most of these writers don't even know what day it is, halfway thing. They're just writing popular soap opera stuff to make you enjoy their writing. It doesn't mean that any of it's factually in base. So I want you to come, there's a term in philosophy, it's in Latin, it's like blank slate or something. Make your mind tabula rasa or whatever it is, tabula. Okay, I'm not good at, I'm not a good speaker. I'm not the best thing. Actually, my brain is, it's like a bad neighborhood. You don't want to go in it alone. And it just jumps all over the place. I am not a genius. I can't keep it in order. But I can have some pretty complicated thoughts. Okay, critical reasoning. I want you to understand why amorphous, again, is one of the most intellectual words I know. Intellect is about looking at our world and reasoning. We can start with knowing, or we can start with not knowing, and not seeing any kind of structure, then trying to derive from it. This is opposite of what most people do in the normal public right now, and the writers, and they talk from a I know it already, I'm the teacher, authority point of view. It's not a passive propositional thing, it's an active, I already know, here's facts, trust me. And the written word has become like a soap opera, and it's who can write it in the most interesting, intriguing way. Science by nature should be boring, it shouldn't be interesting. It shouldn't be scary, it should be real. It shouldn't be, you shouldn't use global warming as something to scare you. It should be something that is either factual or not, and only be telling you undebatable facts. A fact is not really debatable. If somebody debates it, therefore it's debatable. The minute they debate it, it's not an obvious truth. Okay, so intellectual has things that are obviously true, that they derive from amorphous information. Anti-intellectual type people would come up with all these leaps and bounds of opinions that have no relation to obvious truths that everybody would agree on, universal truths. So you kind of have universal truths like the sun is shining in my eyes, and you have, which probably everybody, seeing me squint can see that, and this is an egg. These are obvious things. And then you have these things like these eggs were grown in Nigeria. Hey, they got no label on it. There's a God. Hey, how can I say there's a God? Unless he's talking to me, I'm not going to be positive. There's these things that we really have leaps of faith. And this is where pop science has gone way too far, and the whole world has become dumbed down to a Facebook level of thing. Try to be an intellectual. Study the world in an amorphous way, where you see it, you experience it in unclassifiable, blank slate, then you derive the universal truths from it, which are non-debatable, and then you try to explain a little bit of the world in this way, and realize that everything's a comparison. These people are not poor, they're just poor compared to America, but they're absolutely billionaires in time. They have time. The richest man on the planet, to me, should have unlimited time to muse on things like the word amorphous. Okay, Andy Graham, I'll finish there. I'm going to drink my mocha, cafe, yuki drink, eat my egg, and enjoy my day. La vie est belle. Life is good.